Hi, and welcome to Gen Friends. Tonight, I've got with me Mary Kircher-Roddy from MKR Genealogy, and we are going to discuss day 7 of Relative Race and last night's episode also of Long Lost Family, episode 2 of this season. So, tonight it's just Mary and I, and we're hoping some other people pop in, but we are going to get started and talk about day 7 of Relative Race. Mary, is there a team that you would like to start off with?
What I want to start off maybe
Uh-huh.
with is it was different last night because they had the two teams and two teams go
Yes.
to the same place.
Yes.
So they could do head-to-head competitions on the first challenge, and that was so fun
Yeah.
to see them really competing against each
Yes.
other, and
I
it really brought a different dynamic to the show.
It sure did, and I'm thinking, who's coming up with these challenges? Every
Yeah.
time, every week, I'm thinking, I hope they put together a little booklet so we can use them for family reunions or something. There's so much
I
fun.
loved the things they did last night. That they had to come up with the key out of the egg,
Yes.
and then they had to put an egg in their mouth, be blindfolded, and walk over these ropes and not drop the egg. And the other person had to guide them, and that was just hysterical. And then land the drone on top of somebody's head, and
that's what I'm thinking. What do they do? Just sit back, go, let's see how many crazy things that we can put together. And I know, let's land a drone on their head. I mean, who thinks that?
Put somebody's eye out with it.
Exactly. And I thought it was interesting how at one point both sets of teams had people face to face with each other, and they had to decide, do I just let them walk right into each other? Am I courteous and say, hey, wait a second, let the other team go first?
Yeah.
Blue team was all about, no, you just keep going. Red and black team were more, let's let one go. Let's be a little courteous here.
Yeah.
So I thought that was red team kind of had a little trouble with that one. They had trouble landing that drone. Black team came up with a really good idea and blocked the wind. They were having wind problems.
Yeah.
And so he set it up so, and then he just, boom, it just landed right on her head. Well, another thing funny about that challenge was Rebecca from the black team found the key so quickly in the egg.
Yeah.
And the red team said she probably had it in her pocket. You don't see any bitterness or anything. They're racing against each other, but they're bonding. They're bonding over their stories. And then when the green and the blue team, they were doing the challenge against each other, and the girls were saying, yeah, we started to pick up their accents and talk like them. And then when they left, the blue team got done first. One of them yelled, watch out for cramps. Do you remember that one night when he was going, I've got a cramp. I've got a cramp. So I thought that was hysterical that she yelled that at him. Yeah. That was so funny. So I was thinking maybe we'll start with the green team and work our way up, because it was another emotional night. And so green team, Jamie and Morgan, their second challenge.
Yeah, they had to go through the antique mall and find all the Elvis merchandise.
And they tried to cheat. They tried to grab a guitar and say, will this work? No.
But they did have some pretty good ideas of what that they could look at to find the Elvis stuff. So
yeah, magazines and the record collection, and Jamie found the blue suede shoes.
Yeah,
that was cool. Great. And then their relative was a cousin, and of course he was a Elvis fanatic.
Yeah, he had his whole man cave filled with Elvis stuff.
And I laughed because he said, these girls are a hot mess. He was enjoying getting to know them. So they are making cousin connections all over the place. And here they were in South Carolina again. I'm like, oh, come someplace. Just let me happen to, be walking down the street or something and see the relative race cars come by so I can watch them. So that's kind of fun. And then we had the I don't even know who to go to first. Who should we go to next?
Well, I guess blue team, since they were there together. So so then blue team, what was theirs then?
Theirs was the book nook. Theirs was the book nook. Where they had to find the clues to the books, and they did really well until they got to the last one. And it was about George Washington.
Cherry tree or apple tree, and they couldn't remember.
And then Michael says, "This is why I don't read." And then the book was right. They must have run past that book 3 or 4 times until they finally realized. And so they got the book. So they got that done. And then they actually had to drive to Charlotte. So their relative was not in South Carolina, but they had to cross right over the border and go to Charlotte. And that's where they met their relative, who was...
I'm trying...
I was going to let you... It was their cousins who... on his mom's side, who pulled out the pedigree chart.
The pedigree chart, and it showed his mom on it.
With no death date.
No death date.
Yeah.
And it listed some siblings for her and some other information. So, he picked up on that. And then he said at the end of the show, when the teams all get together, he told the other teams, I know where my mom lives. And so I'm really curious to see whether that's his next stop.
Yeah, because he said she's only 25 miles away from me.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that be something if he gets to meet his mom? Yeah. Grace. I mean, first his dad, his sister. Oh my gosh. And then his mom. Yeah. That would be amazing. That would just be incredible. So
it was kind of interesting last night. I don't think that the father and son look that much alike, but there were some mannerisms with the kid where he was doing the exact, I think it was just, I don't know, kind of the way he was breathing or something, that it looked just like his dad. And it's like, finally, I kind of saw the resemblance between them.
Isn't that funny? Because we do, we pick up mannerisms of the people that we live with, that we're raised with. So,
and sometimes it's not even the ones that you are raised with. Some of these things are just in your DNA that you move this way. Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah. That is very true. Let's go to Troy and Nicole, the red team. They had to play a game based on their relative's nationality, and it was a game from it was a Portuguese game that I'd never heard of before, but it was very similar to like a bocce ball or something like that, where they had to roll the ball and hit the other ball out of the circle. And they had to get 2 balls within the circle and not touch the post in the middle of it.
Right. So
it wasn't too terribly hard for them.
No, it was 3 different distances. I mean, they struggled more on finding the darn key out of all those eggs in the first.
Exactly. That was that really slowed them down. It really slowed them down. Yeah. But so they get to the house. They get to the relative's house, and there's a big sign on the door.
Yeah, come in, and then all these signs, keep coming, come to the backyard. And I liked it, but I'm thinking they're making them waste time getting all the way to the backyard.
I didn't think about that. The wasted time going into the backyard.
I don't know that it would have made any difference, but anyway. And so they get to the backyard, and his aunt and 3 first cousins are all sitting there. And so they had a huge group selfie with everybody in it.
Yes. And of course, this aunt is the sister of his father, and she never knew he existed because, remember, his father was given up for adoption. So the aunt never knew about her brother.
Discovered through DNA that the child. And the brother, that she didn't.
She had no idea.
And so he had been at the cousin's house or the uncle's house the day before and gotten all the paraphernalia, and so he was then able to share with his dad's sister a lot of things about him that she knew less about him than Troy did.
Right. So, she didn't even know he existed. At least Troy knew he existed. She didn't even know. And the cool thing is, then she was sitting down showing him pictures of his great-grandparents and telling him stories. So they were sharing that information. And I thought that was so sweet. I thought that was really, really sweet that they could do that. And they were so accepting of him. Because that's hard. That's a hard thing to find out that, you have a sibling that you didn't know about, and that sibling had a child, and now you've got to introduce them to your children. And that would be a difficult thing, but they were very, very accepting. And you could just tell he was having such a good time with them. And at the end, they even threw him in the swimming pool. So one more tradition, one more thing we have to show you. And they pick him up, throw him in the pool. And I thought, oh, he doesn't have that flip phone in his pocket. Oh, God.
Yeah, or his dad's wallet in his pocket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I don't know if he took that with him or he's going to get that afterwards. I can't imagine having to haul that all the way around. So the most emotional story I think of the night was Rebecca with Team Black.
Yeah.
That was something.
She found her half-sister that she hadn't seen since she was about 5 years old. And Rebecca, it was interesting that Rebecca's memories of it was when her sister was 5.
Right.
But the sister really, she had pretty much relied on a picture when Rebecca was maybe 5 and holding her a 2-week-old baby in her arms.
Exactly. Yeah, that's something. And the story, if everybody's followed it from the beginning, was that Rebecca's mom had died, and then the dad was remarried, and the dad murdered his second wife. And so the sister that she found was the daughter from that second wife. And so they shared a father, and not mothers, they shared a father. And so she had memories of her, and wondered, she never knew what had happened to her, but she had memories of her. And so just when they got out of the car and she looked at her, you could tell she knew she looked familiar, And she goes, you look like us, is what she said to her. Yeah.
And the sweetest thing that the two women, that both their mothers were buried in the same cemetery.
Yes.
So the sister in Lodi took her so they could honor both mothers, and they did the sister's mother, and then Rebecca's mother was in a mausoleum, and the doors were closed by the time they got there. So they have to go back tomorrow.
Day. Yes. I wrote down a couple of quotes that just really touched me from last night. And Rebecca said, "The world has changed and everything is right." She says, "I'm complete." And I just love that. And then Chelsea said, "My sister is Rebecca Hoyt, and I found her on Relative Race." I just thought, that just killed me. I just loved that. So I just had to write that down, just her, she's got all the information that she was questioning, that she was looking for before she came on the race. And everything has been so positive and uplifting for her, where Troy ended up finding out that his father had passed away. Rebecca's, everything has just been, she's complete. It's been great.
These missing pieces have been restored to where they belong.
I just love that for her. I just love it. And she says, "Already we're sisters." She says, I don't know her, but I know her.
And I'll call her when I need to.
Exactly. And they're going to keep that. You can tell they're going to keep that relationship. It's not as strained. They've both been wondering what happened to the other. So it wasn't I didn't know anything about you. So I'm hoping that the same thing will happen with Troy's family, and that they will be able to still continue, and there won't be any strain, later after, because that's a different kind of story where you didn't know that anybody existed, and to have that, put upon you. And I don't know how much time they have to process that between the time the producers call and say, "We found this information," and the show starts. I mean, I don't know how long they have. Is it a month? Is it a few months? Is it a few weeks? Is it a few days? I mean, I have no idea how long they had to process it. And then do you sit back afterwards and go, "Oh goodness," and does this continue? So that'll be interesting to see. So
there was one other interesting thing I thought.
Okay.
So when Team Nitro was in the car, they said, "We're going to meet." They don't know their nickname, but they're Joe Becca.
Yes. So funny. I just love how they're just bonding, and I'm sure with Team Black and Team Red, it has a lot to do with the fact that they found out that Troy and Jonathan from the very first day, that there's a cousin connection there. So I'm sure that's got a lot to do with it. So they do some, smack talking when they're texting each other, but it's all in good fun. There's no real animosity going on. I don't know. Sometimes I think Michael's a little mad at the black team.
Nobody likes Team Black.
Because
they just win all the time.
They keep winning. And we forgot to talk about Team Black's a second challenge, and they had to do that cake. They had to put a 4-layer cake together and make sure with the straws it was held together.
Yeah.
And then they had to be blindfolded, and the other one have them walk through an obstacle course. So they did pretty well with that. And there were things on the obstacle course that could have tripped them up and made them go out of the lines. And if they'd done that, they would have had to back up. So all in all, I think the challenges were a lot of fun and things that I would like to do with my family. They're just great ones this year. I really, really like them. So then, of course, we have to get to the results, which none of us like. And we have to tell them, their times and who came in last and who gets the strike. Ugh, nobody wants to go there. But I do love it. Go ahead.
They were really close. I mean, it was like 28 minutes, I think, between the first
and the smallest they've ever had. Yeah. So they all did great. Nobody was really lagging horribly behind, so it was kind of a toss up, but as usual, they get to talk to each other. And which one was it who said, I think it was the black team that said that was the best day ever. And I believe it was Rebecca. And then Dan came on and was talking about his son and how that was his son's, and he teared up about that, that his son used to say, it's my best day ever. And so they're all getting so involved in each other's stories. And when Rebecca announced that she'd met her sister, they all were and she turned the computer and introduced Chelsea to them. And you could see the emotion. And I'm sorry, you were going to say something?
Well, I was going to ask about Dan. Did his son pass away?
Yes, I don't know the details, but I know he had a son that passed away. I am thinking because he used it in the past tense that he was talking about.
He didn't though, because I rewound it to listen, because he said, I have a son. He didn't say I had a son. He said, I have a son.
Okay. Because I think he's got more than one. And I thought that then he said, it could be because I know that he had a son that passed away. So maybe that's what I heard when he said it. So yeah. Because then he said he used to say.
Yeah. The way he teared up, it made me think that maybe his son had passed away. And so I did go back and listen again. Did he say have or had? And I'm pretty sure he said have.
Yeah. And I don't know, he may have several sons. I do know that he had one that passed away, but I don't know any of the details. I just know that he did. So, but coming in first place, surprise, it was
Team Black, and they took the immunity idol that they can't get a strike tomorrow.
Which is great. So since
they're going to day 10.
They're going to day 10. They will make it to day 10. But I think it's wonderful that they do have that immunity, simply because she needs to go back to the cemetery because it was closed. And so this way they can go, she can take her time and not worried about, okay, I can look at it and say, I'll come back again another time. I've got a race. So for that point, I'm glad that that's what they took. It makes me feel sad for the other teams, because now somebody has to go home, because unfortunately Team Red came in last, which gave them their second strike. So now everybody else has got 2 strikes. So day 8, somebody's going home, and I'm going to cry. I don't want anybody to go home. I really feel connected to all 4 of the teams this year. Last year, I was Team Black all the way. Team Black, Joe Green. Joe Greer. I wanted Joe to win.
You just had a secret crush on him.
I did. But anyway, so his story was just so compelling. It was just wonderful last year. But we have, so many good stories. And even with Team Green, and I've said it before, even though they don't have this, compelling, are they going to find this long lost mother or sister or whatever, they are so much fun. They're just so much fun. I will miss them if they go home. I love their singing and their rapping and their their jokes and their
really on an adventure, just collecting new family, and it just is really cool to see.
And they're enjoying
all the
it.
different kinds of connections they've made.
Yes, they're enjoying it so much, and they were so shocked last night. They really thought they were going home.
Yeah.
and so did the blue team. They thought they were going home. So everybody was kind of shocked, and red team was really sad. But I don't want anybody to go home. So day eight is going to be a little sad. But I did write down one of Troy's quotes from last night. He said, "I remember every embrace, every tear shed," and he said, "so every strike is worth it." And I thought, oh, nice. I love that. I loved that. Oh, he's such a nice guy. So yeah, next week, make sure everybody watches 9:00 Eastern time on BYU TV. And if you can't, if you don't have BYU TV, go to byutv.org and you can watch them from there. You can watch them
That's
online.
how I watch it. You can watch it live or afterwards.
Exactly. And if anybody is likes to tweet during the show live, if you use the hashtag relative race, there's a bunch of us that get on and we live tweet during the show. So that's really fun too. It's really fun to kind of go, no, and wait a minute, not a commercial. And we're, so that's a lot of fun too. There's quite a few of us that meet on Sunday nights at 9:00 Eastern, and we use the hashtag relative race and we tweet. So come join us if you like the Twitter universe. Come and a live tweet with us. The next show that we're going to talk just briefly about, because Mary didn't have a chance to watch it, but and that's just fine. We can only do what we can do. Is Long Lost Families, which airs on TLC at 10:00 Eastern time. So it's back to back genealogy. and again, if you can't watch that live, you can go onto the TLC webpage, and what you have to do is you have to put in your cable information if you have cable, and then you can watch it like that. It takes it a couple of days to come on. You can, after a while, it'll come on and you don't have to do that. But if you miss it, like mine didn't record last night because we had a storm and we had a power bump, so it didn't record. So I had to get on the computer and watch it. But so you can, that's an option too if you can't stay up, especially on the East Coast, and you forget to record it or it doesn't record. Anyway, there were two stories last night. One was Jack, and Jack was looking for his daughter, Robin, and he had walked away from his family when she was 18 months old. He left. He did try to fight for custody at one point, but custody was denied. And so it had been 40-something years, and he hadn't seen her and had a desire to make that connection. He wanted to apologize for his behavior, apologize for not being in her life. So the team went out to look for Robin, and they were able to find her. It took them a while. The normal looking up things with last names and her mom's maybe other marriages. They were having kind of a hard time, but they finally found her. They connected with her and asked, "Do you want to meet your birth dad?" And she was like, "I never really wanted to look for him. He never came around and talked to me." But she had recently found out that he did at least try at one point to get custody of her. And so I think that kind of made her lean a little bit toward, okay, I'll give this a shot. So she did, and it was an interesting meeting. He apologized to her, and she accepted the apology, but she says, he says, there's no manual on this. I don't really know what I want to do with this. I don't know if I want to stay in touch with you. I mean, it was, that's real. That is real. And so, she says, I just don't know. And so he gave her his number, and he said, "I will leave it in your court. If you would like to make contact again, I would love it." But he felt like what he had set out to do, he had done. He'd been able to talk to her, his side of the story. I'm sure there was a lot more talking that we got to see.
Right.
But they were able to talk, and he got, his piece out, so he could feel closure with it, and then that was up to her. And so, I wonder watching that, how often we see these reunions like that, and they look like they're going okay, or not in this case. I wonder how many of them really stay in touch with each other.
Or how many we don't even see because they didn't get she said, no, I don't want to meet him.
Exactly.
And so there is no episode there.
Exactly. Or maybe the meeting went so bad. They thought it was going to be okay, but the meeting was so bad. They're like, nope, this is not going to work. So that was the first story. And then they had the story of Carol, who wanted to find her birth mom. She was adopted as an infant from Catholic Charities, and she had heard a story that when she was 2 years old, some lady came to the door and came up and was looking at her in her crib and was saying, okay, she's having a good life. And so the story in the family was that must have been her birth mom. And so she'd heard this story, all her life. And she felt like she just didn't fit in. She was short. Everybody else was tall. She had adopted siblings, but she just, she says, I loved my family. It's got nothing to do with not loving my family. I just want that piece. I want to know, did she come? Who is she? What's her story? She was 19 apparently when she gave me up for adoption. So I just want to hear the story. And she also, her name was Carol because when they adopted her, she said she was born in July, but it was Christmas. It was like December 23rd. And Catholic Charity said that her birth name was Jody, but they had to change it. That they had to change her name. So since it was close to Christmas, they named her Carol, Christmas Carol. So they named her Carol. So that's the story of her name. And then she has a daughter, and she named her daughter Jody. So I think
sweet.
Yeah. So that was really sweet. So through DNA testing, they were able to connect with her biological mom, who did accept the visit, and they went to talk to her. It turns out she was in fact 15 when she got pregnant. It was the father was a married man that she'd met at the bus terminal because she kept skipping school and she was hanging out in places where she shouldn't have been going. And she got picked up by the police because she was ditching school and sent to a girls' reformatory place. And when they did her checkup, they discovered she was pregnant. Wow. So from there, they made her give the baby up for adoption. She says she wanted to keep her, but they told her if she would give her up for adoption, they'd let her out. She could go back and live with her mom. But if she didn't, they would just put her right back in. So she really had no choice. It's not like she could have taken the baby back in with her. So she had no choice, but she was 15 years old, 15. And so she did want to go meet. Oh, there's one other big thing. Guess what the mom's name was? Are you ready? Drum roll. Carol. What?
Oh, wow.
What are the odds of that? Carol?
Yeah.
So she wrote a letter so that her daughter Carol could read it. And an interesting thing with that is, those people, they paint the rocks and then they hide them places, and then people find the rocks and then they do the hashtag. Have you ever heard of that? And they'll hashtag and they'll tell people where they found the rock, and then they'll put the rock someplace else. Well, Carol, the daughter, does this. And when he went back to tell her that he'd found her birth mom, she was painting rocks, and she had painted a rock with a shamrock on it. So he hands her this letter, and she's reading this letter from Carol, her mom, her birth mom. And her birth mom had put a little shamrock in the letter. Whoa. She put this little shamrock in the letter, like, and she's reading down it, and she looks and she goes, wait, she puts, all my love, your birth mom. And then she wrote Carol. I think she thought for a minute she was referring to her.
Right. How does she know my name? And
she looked at him and she's like, Carol, her name is Carol. I mean, it was just unreal with the name and then the shamrock. It was just unreal. So they met, and it was a real sweet meeting of, biological mom meeting her daughter, and they did look a lot alike and both short. And so she told her the story. No, I was really 15, and told her the story. But she never went to go visit. So where the story comes from, who knows?
Okay, yeah.
Who knows? She said, I never knew. It wasn't me. I didn't come to your house. I didn't go visit you.
I wonder if it was somebody from Catholic Community Services, maybe.
Checking up on
her.
because it was a child, it was a sibling, I believe is what she said, her brother, that let this person in the house. And it's very possible that it was somebody, pretending to be somebody else, because I think they said that she said she was a reporter or a journalist or something like that, and he let them in and went to go get his mom, and they found her upstairs by the crib or wherever the crib was, asking if the baby had a good life and and they didn't know who this person was and just thought, well, maybe it was just the birth mom found her and just was checking on her. So I kind of felt sorry for Carol. Yeah, it was weird. I kind of felt sorry for Carol, though, because all this time she thought, well, at least she came and checked on me. And it wasn't even her. So that story went down the tubes, which is, it just goes to show family lore.
Exactly.
Check out all this family lore. Yeah. So, and I wonder, if they've been able to stay in contact, like we talked about the other families. Do they stay in contact? I don't know. You'd like to think they would. They seemed at that point to have had. It seemed to be a good reunion. It seemed to be natural as they were talking, but you just never know, because sometimes I'm sure they start finding out styles are different. Maybe things are not. You just never know. You just never know. So. Anyway, and I don't know, do they ever do a reunion show for Long Lost Family?
They do. They've had, I think it was one season, like before the official season started, they did a couple of episodes where they kind of caught up on prior reunions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because that'd be kind of.
Some are good, and some just it doesn't last. It's just So it's I read a really interesting book called Coffee and Cake, and I reviewed it for FGS Forum.
Okay,
and it was a daughter's search for her birth mother, and the daughter's mother, adoptive mother, was alive, and her birth mother was alive, and her birth mother was remarried and had some other children. So there were some half siblings here and there, and there was a lot of interesting family dynamics that I hadn't even thought about.
I'm sure
the ways this could go.
I'm sure.
Just so it's not surprising that it doesn't always. It's not a fairy tale.
No, no, it can't be. I mean, there are reasons. There are reasons that children need to go to other homes. And so it's a lot of different reasons. So I can imagine there's a lot of baggage as you meet. Things to have to overcome and get used to, and so. Anyway, so I sure appreciate you joining me tonight.
You did it. It was fun.
My Jen friend, Mary, showed up to talk to me tonight. So next week, it'll be day 8 of Relative Race, and somebody will be kicked off. Oh, I have to bring some Kleenex because I won't be able to talk about it. And then the next episode of Long Lost Families we'll be talking about the next time we get together.
I'll try to hopefully catch up on both of those episodes.
That's wonderful. So we hope you're watching out there, and we hope you get a chance to see the shows, and please add the comments of what you thought about the shows. We'd love to read those. So until next time, this has been Jen Friends. We'll see you again. Bye, everybody.
Bye.